You're listening to the Coach's Journey podcast, exposing the struggles and celebrating the successes in the life of coaches who are action takers and creating authentic impact in today's world. Whether you're just starting out, expanding your reach, or exploding your impact, you're in the right place right now. Stay tuned and be sure to subscribe to this podcast. Now, here are your hosts of the Coach's Journey podcast.
What's up, Coaches Nation? This is Dr. Sherry with another episode of the Coach's Journey podcast. Today, we have one of the most anxiety-provoking topics that we could ever talk about in life. We are going to unpack it today and how it relates to your coaching business. And it's not taxes, it's not public speaking, it's not politics, it's not religion, but it actually is tied to all of those. And that is money. Money is so hard to talk about. There is a gentleman, he is the CEO or president of Real Brokerage, which is an organization that I'm a part of on the real estate side of my life. His name is Sharon. He has a really cool framework around relationships. The relevant part to this is this is how he thinks about relationships. The most deepest relationships that he gets into are ones that he can talk about money. If he can talk about money with somebody freely, openly, and not feel judged, not have any anxiety or concerns or any of that extra level of emotional baggage, he knows it's a really good relationship. And Faisal, you and I have talked money before. We've, with our coaching business about other things. And so find people you can talk about your coaching business that related to your how much money you're making or not making, quite frankly, because that's a lot of times where the conversation is. So if you're not sure how your finances are in your coaching business or how you want to get it to where you want it to go, or maybe you haven't even thought about that. You're like, I just want to serve people. And that's kind of that Pollyanna attitude. That's okay. We love that. But there's also the reality of there has to be money made in order to sustain your mission. Unless you're independently wealthy and you don't have to worry about money, then you may be excluded from this. But other than that, we all have to have this conversation and this topic. So we are going to deep dive into this today. You might be a little uncomfortable, but that's okay. That's a good thing.
Yeah, I love this topic because I was so uncomfortable talking about this for a long time. And I actually do it purposely now. I'll even around my family and friends, I'll kind of poke in these areas just to see how they feel. Like what's happening? It's like it's like you haven't been working for this long. Where are you getting money from? It's like what's happening with your business? What are you doing? It's like people stay away from that stuff, and I know exactly why, because I stayed away from that stuff, because it's like you don't want to go there. And there's and I love that framework that you mentioned, that for if you're, and I would say, like, if you're close with somebody, you will be able to talk about money, politics, and religion.
Absolutely.
All three. But if it creates a lot of tension and everything, and you don't know how to approach it, it's likely there's not enough openness in that relationship. That's actually, and the reason for that is because our psychology is driven by these things, especially money. Because and I'll share a little bit about me. Like I come from like a very humble background. Like we were, like, this world is a very different world than where I grew up in. Like we had our basic needs met. Like that was like, if we had our basic needs met, if we had food, water, and shelter, we were happy. But here's the thing that I saw. What I saw was my parents' arguments were mostly around money. It's like literally status and money. It's like my mom always wanted my dad to have a better status, better job, better thing. My dad was not that motivated by that for some reason. And there was always conflict, and we always had issues with bills and challenges and stuff. And incidentally, I repeated that pattern in myself, in my own life, and within my own marriage, and that's not a coincidence. It's like those are the things that whatever is modeled to us, we do that. Now, of course, I'm not saying my parents only modeled that for us. They modeled a lot of amazing things, like our faith, our connection, our trust in each other, all sorts of amazing things that they did. But there are certain things, especially around money, that I was very uncomfortable. My wife and I, we never talked about money. Now we talk about it all the time. It's like, okay, what are we doing? And I want to caveat this around this because a lot of coaches are service driven and they want to serve people, they want to work with people. We all do.
Yes.
But it comes down to the practicality of your model. So if you just want to serve people for the sake of serving people, which means that you could do this in 3 different ways. You could do it like as a completely volunteer thing. You could do it as a not-for-profit thing.
Yeah.
Or you could do it as a business, which is based on profit. As soon as you pick the vehicle of business, you're going to have to confront the question of money, what does that mean in a business context? That's literally the lifeblood of your business. It's as important as when you talk about food for human beings. It's like, where is your food coming from? Imagine nobody talked about food every day.
Yeah.
It's like,
Well,
we can't. That's it.
And honestly, even if it's a nonprofit, that you still have to have the money conversations because you're still probably going to draw a salary. You have the potential to take donations and all. So money still is a part of this. Unless this is literally just a hobby and you're volunteering your time for maybe, another nonprofit, which is totally fine. You can do that. But if that's not you, then this conversation must be had, quite frankly.
Yeah. And more specifically, I want coaches to think about this from the perspective of their, so you will have a vision for the life that you're creating. And this is the part that you need to confront. Yes, you want to, and here was my thought process. When I left my engineering career, like I could have worked there. Like I was very good at what I did when I started off, and I could picture, I could project that and say that, hey, in about 3-4 years, I'll make about 100K or plus that. Like that would have been enough for me in terms of the lifestyle that I was picturing. Like that would have been enough. But what I saw was that it's not interesting for me. And in the way that I thought, after I worked in it a couple of years, it wasn't interesting. So then I started thinking, I'm like, okay, what do I love doing? What inspires me? What connects me to the things that it's like, it's actually my growth. It's actually thinking about human behavior. It's actually thinking about like our place in this world. It's actually thinking about connecting with people differently. It's actually understanding how people operate. It was very interesting for me. I'm like, okay, one option is I go back to university and take a degree like Sharon. Go towards psychology. That was something I was considering. That's one way. Except I didn't have a really good relationship with the academic world. I didn't like the system. So that was out. Corporate world was out. That was what was left. Well, how else do people work with people? And I started looking into it, and pretty soon I found out, I was like, oh, there's such a thing as coaching. It's like, oh, okay, you can get training, you can get started. A lot of it you will learn as you move along, but it will keep me engaged in that world that I'm interested in.
Yeah.
Okay, so I can do something where I make money, but I love doing that anyway. I love studying that subject. I love learning that. Well, that sounds like a smart choice to me, at least, because I'll be doing that anyway. So might as well do something where I get paid in the process. Now, I didn't even know the potential of a business like this at the time. I just like, if I get paid enough to just survive and do this that I love, I'll do this. But then I made a choice there, and the choice was that, oh, okay, I'm gonna do this for money, which means that I need to do activities that relate to money. So going back to that vision, and that's what I want everybody to think about. Like, if you have a vision for a lifestyle that you want to create, maybe you want to travel more, maybe you want to be able to do certain things in your life. So for example, for us, I like traveling. I like being in different places. Sherry does too. And I wanted to actually get a motorhome at some point. I didn't know when. At the time, we did get that eventually. I wanted to live in different places for longer periods of time, to be embedded in that culture. So those were important to me, and there were certain things that were important for my wife. And when we thought about it, like this took me 3 years to attach a dollar value to that. Like 3 years to even consider that there's, in my mind, I was like, I'm gonna magically create that. Well, the world.
And the 3 years, it took you that long, I would guess, because you didn't have people around you that were having these conversations and guiding you to think about things in a very intentional way. Right? Is that true? Because that's what we're trying to do. We're shortcutting those 3 years that Faisal took for you all that are listening. Like, you don't have to take the 3 years.
Yeah, and that's what, like, and most, even the coaches or the people that were they weren't business minded. They were thinking exactly the same way as me. They were like, oh, you know what? Yeah, it would be cool to have have money coming in through there, and they will talk about it, but it was more like on the passive end. But now the difference is that, okay, what's the goal? How are you going to go there? So that lifestyle will have a dollar value attached to it. So for example, right now, my lifestyle, for me to maintain this, I need at least 120,000 a year. And that's a choice I've made. For you, it might not be that. Maybe your lifestyle is $50,000. Maybe your lifestyle is 200,000. Whatever it is, there will need to be a how attached to that, which means that the activities that need to happen in your business need to connect to that dollar value that you're creating in long term. So there will be a long term one, let's say 3 years, 5 years out, because business takes a little bit while. And then there's going to be the short term progression every year. How are you moving towards that? So that's what we wanted to talk about, is like, are you thinking about it? If you haven't talked about it, really sit down, figure out your vision. What is the dollar value that you would attach to that? And don't overestimate it. Like a lot of times when people do this, like, I need millions of dollars. Like, can you help me understand? Like, tell me when I walk people through there, it's like, yeah, I need a few $1,000,000 to them. Like, you probably need a few $100,000. And they actually feel better about that when I tell them, like, because now they don't feel that level of pressure. And because it's different to create millions versus thousands. In business, is very different as well.
Yeah, I
What are your
love that.
thoughts?
Yeah. So, and let me introduce. So when I think about this for myself, for my family, it's about 140,000. We've got 4 kids, like a lot of,
You got more kids.
we have more kids, that means more money, right? And then thinking about the travel we want to do, it might be a little bit more than that, but somewhere around there. Now, my husband and I also have other sources of revenue. So when I look at how much money do I want or need to make from coaching as a contribution to the overall, what does it look like now? What does it look like in the future? How much do we want to continue to invest? All of that stuff plays a factor. So each person that's listening to this, your situation is going to be different. But regardless of if it's different or not, you still need to know your numbers. How much money are you getting from a spouse's job? How much money are you getting from a different business? How much money do you have from investments that you've already made? All of that stuff matters into the big picture, which can help reduce the level of anxiety and pressure around needing to hit this huge number. But at the same time, that stress and anxiety is kind of good. In the psychology world, we know that there's like this bell curve to the level of stress that's optimal. Too much stress is debilitating. Too little stress is demotivating. So there is this sweet spot in the middle where we want to have some pressures and expectations on ourselves, because that's what helps us to do things and not just to be a bump on the log for the rest of our lives.
Yeah, and that is so important to think about. That how are you structuring your life? And also, this is one of those weird things with coaches that I've seen, is that they want to remove stress altogether. They want to remove, but think about anything that you do that's worth doing. More than likely, you'll have excitement and anxiety around it, a mix of the two feelings. It won't be just like if you're trying to get on, like, speak on stage, like, if you don't feel anxious before you go there, it probably doesn't mean shit all to you. It's like, you've done it too long. It's just whatever. It's like, even with sessions, like to this day in coaching sessions, I'm much more confident and comfortable, but I want to do well. I want to support my clients well. So I have a certain level of anxiety associated with it. It's not anxiety in the thing that's debilitating, like Dr. Sherry, but it's the kind that helps you, motivates you to do things.
Absolutely.
That's very important to have in everything that you're doing, which means that your system is challenging itself to do better. But I want to make it more real and tangible, because here's where the problem occurs. A lot of coaches jump in, and there's a lot of unrealistic expectation in business. I had it too. Actually, my mentor looked at me when I first started. He's like, I'm like, in 1 year, I'm going to do this. I remember him looking at me and he's like, give yourself 3 years. I'm like, no, I'm doing this in 1 year. Give yourself 3 years to hit that. But like after 3 years, I'm like, yeah, it makes sense. And that was around the bigger goal. I was like, okay. So here's what coaches need to understand. So just like Dr. Sherry, if you have multiple sources of revenue, that's great. So in the beginning, when I started out, coaching was not my primary source. Now it is, but I've shared this before. I started doing Uber because I didn't know how else to do this. Now, if I had real estate like Sherry, I would have been a little bit better had I made better choices before then, but I didn't. I had to do that. So now when coaches jump in, they're like, well, you know what? I'm going to give myself 3 months and I'm going to make this happen. That's putting way too much. That's not what happens in business. You need to have at least a buffer of 6 months to 1 year to give yourself the space to start generating revenue, because there are a lot of pieces to understand. So while you're doing that, you either have a buffer, like a cushion in terms of money you have, or you have a cash flow system somewhere else, whether that comes from job or real estate or whatever, wherever it comes from. You need to have something like that because you're also providing for your family, unless you're well off, which is not that doesn't matter. But so what does that mean? That means that if you want to do better in coaching, you need to take care of that cash flow side where you're surviving. Like most coaches I talk to, they're struggling with survival and they're thinking about putting up their website. I'm like, makes no sense. Yeah. It's like, why are you doing, how's that going to help you with business at all? And I want to talk about the activities of it in a little bit, but really understanding that, hey, if I need money to survive, business might not be the first place to go to if this is a startup, because every startup takes a little bit of time to pick up, even if you have the right support program. And the expectation is, and this is where the messaging that you hear in the marketing world is like, hey, 90 days, you're going to make 6-figure, and 1 year, you're going to make a 7-figure business. They're assuming that you know everything you need to know about the business, and they just give you the model and you'll put it to work. That's very few people.
Yeah. Very few people. Absolutely. Preach it.
What's your experience in there when it comes to these programs, Sherry?
Even coming into this, having been an entrepreneur in starting a brick and mortar business and running that for 9 years, I was completely unprepared for the amount of traction I would need to get. And so unless you've been in a very similar type of business where you've had to figure out your offer and you've had to think about how we present ourselves and our identity, because that's a piece in this whole transition too, is who are you? How do you even talk about yourself? All of that stuff has to be in alignment and working for the money side to really start to become a little bit more predictable. And yeah, I would love to just break it down a little bit more specifically and with some concrete numbers as some examples, because I think that would be the most helpful for our listeners.
So what did you have in mind in terms of concrete numbers?
Yeah, so let's maybe you can walk me through a little exercise. This is an exercise we do in our community. We've done this before with some of our members. Faisal, let's say that I'm a new coach into the community, and I'm haven't even got my first client yet, and I'm like, so I'm working on like updating my social media profiles, and I'm trying to figure out how to run ads, and I'm finishing on my website, and I haven't made any money yet. How would you approach me regarding the financial viability and kind of what my perceptions are about what I'm doing and what I'm going to make and the speed of all of that?
Yeah, so I would actually directly go into, first of all, I want to understand like what does coaching mean for you in your grand life scheme? Like, what are you trying to do? Are you building a full-time business, part-time business? How does this connect to your vision? Tell me a little bit about your vision and how does coaching fit in there? Because people have different ways they will approach it. And then I will want to know exactly, like once you explain the vision, I would want to know like what's the lifestyle that you're building? Are there any other sources of revenue? Are there any other things you're doing? Like, okay, so if you were to put a dollar value to that ideal lifestyle, what would that be? And which part of that comes from coaching? Yeah. I would want to understand that. Usually coaches have no idea what that is. And so I have to walk them through. And when they get the number, they're like, oh, okay. I'm like, okay, so now you have that. Now tell me a little bit more about where you are in your skill sets and your offer. I would want to understand, do you have a clear offer? And I would want to understand what you do to get clients normally. So
Yeah.
this is where like it dispels all the stuff, because then a lot of the things that they're thinking about is actually meaningless when you put because what they're usually doing is what you said is like, well, I'm thinking about ads. Well, you're starting out, you have no idea what your messaging is. You have no idea what level of skill sets you have. So you're going to throw a bunch of money on ads, and that's assuming you're doing it. So you're going to have to spend a shitload of time learning ads and spend a bunch of money. So that's another skill set that you need to learn. That doesn't make sense. Okay, now you're thinking about your website branding. You're spending a bunch of time on that. Does that matter? Not matter. It actually doesn't matter in the beginning that much. Or you're considering how are you going to send your email funnel and all that stuff. How does that translate to money? So there are very clear, direct things outside of just manifesting money. There are very clear direct things you can do. Not that I have a problem with that, because our energy needs to be aligned with certain things. Like we need to feel like we deserve certain things to get it, or at least we need to feel like we want this thing, if nothing. So you can't have like blocks around like, I hate money and I don't want to get this. People who have money is like deal with that stuff. That stuff you need to be that needs to. But once you have that target number, then let's talk about like how does this work in business? And this is the part that's hard for coaches to understand, because most coaches are not business owners. I wasn't either. They don't understand how you go from making no money to make six-figure. Like it's complete. And usually it goes back to when you ask them, they're like, well, you know what? I'm attracting it. Like, explain how that works. There's nothing tangible in there
I walk around with magnets, and I'm hoping to. So let's say if I want to make $10,000 a month. And that would push me over the six-figure. So I would be a quote unquote six-figure coach, which seriously, I feel like those numbers are irrelevant, because who cares how much you're taking home, or how much you're making if you're not taking it home. But that's a whole nother discussion. But let's say that I'm set on 10,000 a month. So how would you walk me through kind of dissecting that and figuring out, what do I actually need to do today? So we've talked about my vision. I've gotten alignment and clarity through previous conversations with you around my vision and how that fits in with the $10,000 a month. But now I'm like, I don't know what the heck I'm supposed to be doing each day. And I'm just feel like I'm spinning my wheels.
Yeah. So, and this is the part too, like a key thing to understand, that almost everything you're going to do in the beginning of a coaching business will be sales. Everything connects back to sales. And everything connects back to also your skill sets. So you're spending a crap load of your time developing your skill sets. Even if you've been trained, even if you have a lot of knowledge around personal development, you actually have to put it to test now. Yeah. So what does that mean? That means that I would want to clarify what their offer is usually. So for example, when I ask coach, like, what's your offer? They're unclear. It's like, I think I'm if they have some idea of it, like, I think I want to charge $100 per hour or $75. Just thinking is a problem in business. Like, you want to charge people hourly, and usually therapists have that thinking process if they've been a therapist or they've been in any kind of like their massage therapist or something else, or from the psychology, they're trained to think in terms of hourly. We don't want to do that. We want to create an offer that gives value. It's a value-based offer. So I want to understand how much were they charging. Usually I'm trying to get them to raise that a little bit, because the way things work in business is that 1 month you might do very well. You might make 5,000 if you weren't making anything, but another month you might make 1,000. So how are you going to account for that? That means you need to charge a little bit more based on your skill sets to be able to do that, based on the value that you're giving. So let's say I help them think about, like, what would be a package where they can't track how many hours and all that stuff. You're telling them, hey, we're going to work. This package is going to help you do this. You're solving a problem for your client. For 6 weeks, we're going to work together. 12 weeks, ideally, we work together. 3 months is a good time. We work together, and this is what you get. And this 12-week package might be $3,000. Let's say if it's $3,000. Now, how many of those units sold translates to $10,000 a month?
Yeah. That's like a little over a 3.
Yeah, it's not that many.
Yeah.
And this is what makes coaching business, it's not selling toothpaste. So you don't need to make like a little bit over the, and just to answer the other questions, like actually in coaching business, one of the cool things is that the overhead is so low. Like if you're starting out, you don't have that many expenses. It's like well over 90% of what you're gonna do and making your coaching business, you're gonna keep it, just minus the taxes and some other things that you're gonna pay off, like your corporation and other things and payment systems. If you take out all that stuff, well over 90% you're gonna keep. But once your business grows, that's gonna change a little bit. But in the beginning, the first 6-figure, I don't think you need to spend that much. You're gonna take home a lot of it. Versus a business like a restaurant might be 20% they keep.
Yeah.
Versus 90%.
So using your example, Faisal, of let's say that I'm trying to sell a package that's $3,000 and I'm wanting $10,000 a month. That means, let's just say I have to sell 4 people a month. It's really 3 point something, but it's hard to sell half of a person to half of a person. So let's just call it 4. So I have to make 4 sales a month on average. So then what we do is we reverse engineer. Okay, well, if you want to have 4 people a month that buy, well, what are you doing prior to them buying that package? You're probably doing a sales call, a discovery call, something like that, maybe a webinar. So, okay, so then how many of those webinars do you need to do to get a client? If you're doing strategy sessions, maybe you're really struggling with getting all the pieces put together. Maybe you have to go through 10 people, 10 strategy calls to get 1 buyer. So if we want 4 in a month, that means, and we need to do 10 per buyer, that's 40 strategy sessions we need to do. And let's reverse engineer it even more. Like, how are you doing your outreach, and how many outreaches and people do you need to talk to in order for them to agree to have a strategy session? So this is how we take the money conversation and make it tangible and real to what do you need to do on a day-to-day basis to actually make your money goals happen.
Yeah, and I love that you reverse that. So and you might hear terms like prospecting, you might hear terms like outreach, you might hear terms like strategy sessions, which are essentially sales calls. Like these are essential components of a business that's within a coaching model. If you don't understand that, here's what ends up happening. Even if you're like, most coaches are even scared to put themselves out there with blogs or video or something. Usually most of the content you put out there, it actually just establishes credibility. It doesn't actually give you clients. It gives you credibility. It makes people trust you, that you are out there and you're putting active content, you're doing this as a professional thing. But most of your clients are going to come from you actually reaching out to people within networks. Now that depends on your skill sets. This, I can't stress this enough, because there's a lot of like cookie cutter advice around this, is that, oh, go do webinars. Well, initially when I started, I was scared to death to talk to one person, and you want me to do a webinar in front of, like, I had to build skill sets to talk to one person. Then now I'm on a webinar. I remember being on that first webinar. I forced myself to do it the second year. I was like, oh, what? Especially webinars specifically, you can't see anybody. Like, I don't do webinars. I do Zoom calls now. Even my webinars are Zoom calls. But I'm like, what's happening? I kept checking in with people. I'm like, are you guys still there? Are you listening?
Oh my gosh, I would pay money to see that. Oh my gosh, that's hilarious.
But it was torture because I did not have the skill sets. Now, keep your skill sets in mind. If you've done group facilitation in the past, if you've done group coaching, maybe that's the direction you go. You do webinars every week, or not every week, once a month. Do it, because it's a lot of work to just promote one thing and get people to register for it. But if you don't have that, you're reaching out to the people in your network and you're actually taking them through your coaching process. While you're doing that, you're actually building your skill sets as well. You're seeing what's the value of your product, because when you do a bunch of sessions for, like, let's say you do 10 sessions, you will get a lot of painful data around that, because what is going to happen is when you do your first few sessions, you're going to struggle. You're going to be like, I don't know how to start this. I don't know how to navigate this challenge. I don't know how to end this. I don't know how to go towards the offer. I don't know how to ask them for referrals. I don't know how to ask them for, like, there's so many things that come up that there's a huge, very steep learning curve in there.
Yeah.
And this is what coaches underestimate. So most of their time goes in trying to build their website and stuff, but actually you need to accelerate your time. And what you need to build is your ability to have conversations with people and support them. If you can just develop that and you do that long enough and with as many frequency as possible, and this is why we say that as a number. If you do 100 coaching calls, you will have clients. Now, the reason why people don't have clients is because you just don't do that. Now, that's not easy because you will probably have to reach out to like 300 plus people to book 100 coaching calls, maybe 400 to book 100 coaching calls that would translate to you actually making an offer. And the key is that you need to make that offer, which is 3,000, 2,000, whatever. But that number needs to make sense. Is that if you made 100 offers and about 10 people signed up for that, then you're hitting the $10,000. Now, this gets easier as you move forward. Eventually, you're not going to have to reach out to 400 people because referrals start to come into the picture. People are going to start to reach out to you. You start to get into different networks. It becomes easier, the process. It becomes more fluid. But in the beginning, there's a lot of effort that needs to happen for you to build skill sets on the coaching side, or your ability to talk to people, your ability to sell, your ability to make offers, your ability to refine your offer. There are so many skill sets. If you're just passively stepping back and just doing content for the sake of content, but it's not leading somewhere towards that goal, then it's not building your coaching business.
Yeah. And it's not going to fulfill that money goal that you have. And if you're listening to this and you're thinking to yourself, oh my gosh, I've been doing this wrong. Like I haven't been having these financial conversations with myself or with other people. And I really don't know exactly the right things to do that are going to result quicker in getting paying clients. The Coaching Mastery community, we actually have a super amazing program specifically to help you get these basic fundamental pieces in place so you can start to make money so that you can then kind of start to add some of these other things that you're already thinking about, but really that's not going to be the most valuable thing for you right now. So if you're not sure about that, reach out to us. We would love to have a phone call with you to talk a little bit more about the programs we have available, the paid programs we have available, so that they can give you exactly what you need right now. And you don't have to be spinning your wheels, doing all these things that you're not really sure. Is this going to work? Is it not? Am I doing the right thing? Because that's the hard part of starting any business, is not really being sure if you're doing the things that matter the most right now in your business.
Yeah. And really, I mean, we joke around about this stuff. We have fun, but we've all gone through this process. Like, it's not a judgmental thing for me to say all this stuff because I've literally experienced every step of the way, and I continue to experience. And I've seen it in so many coaches that it's actually much more painful to watch them go through this and just tell them directly whatever the hell you're doing is not working right now. So stop doing that. Do this instead. But in the process, the most difficult part of this, as Sherry said, is that you need feedback. I had no frame of reference. I would put up webinars, I would throw content, I would do all sorts of stuff, but I don't know what's working, what's not working, because I've never done this. So you need to be around people who are a little bit ahead of you, some who are actually doing the same thing, and some maybe even behind you, so you can actually do some work on that side to teach them. So that helps you to grow as well. And that's how we've set up our communities, that we are an implementation community. We want to help you grow. We want to give you feedback on the sales side, on your coaching skills side. And that's a unique part about our community. We don't just focus on business. We focus on the quality of your service, because if the quality of service is not there, it doesn't matter how good you get at marketing and sales. It's not, the business is not sustainable, because the quality of your product is not good, or if your service is not good. And there are very few communities that actually help you with something like, actually, it doesn't exist the way we're doing it, but there are other ways that people are approaching this. So join us. And also, if you're just thinking, like, you were listening to us, like, I don't know how to market around this, I don't know how to approach the sales, just let us know. We've done a couple of master classes on sales and marketing that'll actually help you, and even on delivery. If you want access to any of those, just share #marketing, sales, or delivery. We will share that with you. And if you haven't booked a conversation with us, please reach out to us. We will help you sort this out and see if the community is the right fit for you, because you don't want to do this on your own. There are too many things to figure out on this path. It's going to take you 3 to 4 years on your own, but you will have all the foundations within the first year with us. And if you do the work, you will actually start to make money. We don't promise what you are going to make because that depends on your skill sets, but we push you to take action and actually make this a reality.
Yeah. If just for myself, if I wasn't in a community that supported me, that gave me specific guidance, that kept me going, encouraging me, think about it. If I'm saying I need 144,000, which is 12,000 for, each month, if I need that to like run my household the way that I want it to, and I want to do it on my own, and it takes me 3 years, we're talking like over $400,000 or $500,000 that I need to have amassed in a savings account in order to buffer myself for those 3 to 4 years. Like, that's insane. The idea that it's going to take me that long and I have to have that much money saved up in order to sustain me while I'm trying to get traction and figure things out, that is insane. So the return on your investment in a community like this is unparalleled, because you are going to get to where you need to be so much quicker. It's ludicrous when I think about it. I'm so thankful that I'm not hanging out in the wind trying to do this all by myself.
Yeah.
All right. So hashtag masterclass. If you want to send us an email, it's support@coachingmasterycommunity.com. You can search us up on all the socials. There's so many ways to get a hold of us, but we'd love to start that conversation with you and find ways that we can support you based on what your vision is and what your financial goals are.
Hope you have an incredible day, and we'll talk soon.
Sounds
Bye.
good. Bye.
You're listening to the Coach's Journey podcast.